Hey everyone, back for another movie review. We have a lot of whimsy, we have a lot of animation, and we're talking about the last Disney movie that has been released. About 50 years in the making, I'm talking about Marry Poppins Returns. Directed by Rob Marshall. This is a story taking place several years after the incidents of the first Mary Poppins movie. The Banks family has grown up. The two children are now our leads in the story, Michael and Jane. And we find out that Michael has inherited the house that they grew up in the first movie. And things aren't going too good. Of course, this is a Disney movie, so one of the parents is fucking dead. Jane comes by, she's an activist, and she's fighting for the causes of the working man in this society. And we find out that Michael hasn't been paying the bills since a tragedy has happened, and we can only assume it's because Disney's afraid of having two parents in a movie. And Mary Poppins comes back, or she returns, as in the title. And this movie is strangely uneven and doesn't really make a lot of sense. Let's get this out of the way. I've never seen the original Mary Poppins. Yes, gasp if you have to. But from what I recall or what I've read from the movie, Mary Poppins comes to straighten out the kids and dare to help them fly straight because they were out of control monsters. I could be wrong. Like I said, I never saw the original. And in this movie, the kids are strangely more adults than the adults. The opening scene is about a faucet breaking in the house, and Michael coming in to he's used to it. He comes and he goes to try to stop the water, and the kids just come down perfectly and act like they're freaking in their like 30s. And oh, we know we have to do this, da-da-da, but without the childlike whimsy of it. And at the same time, this movie also wants Michael to learn a lesson, which is the same lesson we saw Ewan McGregor learn in Christopher Robin's back in August. I did like this movie though. It had story issues, but let's start. Emily Blunt as Mary Poppins. She is charming as hell in this movie. She has charisma to spare. And it's kind of interesting to see how we saw her as this quiet mother in a quiet place who ends up becoming kind of like Sarah Connors by the time the credits roll. And here she's this snarky, very rude person, just like the original Mary Poppins, to the family of Michael, to Jane, and but still at the same time charming and ready to go whimsical with the kids. There's also another character, Jack, played by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who is, I want to say he should have been the co-star. His storyline was far more interesting than the actual parent, Michael Banks' storyline, because he opens the movie by singing and he closes it by singing. He's the guy who puts on the lights and turns them off every day and every night, and he's supposed to be a character from the original one, a child that in the original Mary Poppins movie, and he's really good in this movie. He can sing, which helps in a musical, and I kind of wish we would have spent more time with him. He was charming, He was very debonair, besides the fact that despite the fact that he is your everyday man. He is this like person who just literally turns on the lights every day and turns them off in the morning time, and he's really charming. He has a bunch of musical scenes and he performs them really well. The Banks family, I was really confused by the point of the movie, in all honesty, because like I said, I believe the original was supposed to be, and please comment me if I'm wrong, was Mary Poppins came to relieve stress off the parents and to shape up the kids. But here it seems like she's supposed to make Michael learn that he needs to remember about being a child again, and also just be there for the kids, I guess, and or make them learn that there's magic in the air. But it kind of doesn't work, because Mary Poppins is almost never in the same scene with Michael Banks. They have a couple of scenes together, but it was only when she comes back and says, "Hey, I'm Mary Poppins," and she's like, "Yeah, you don't remember the magical stuff we did in the first movie." And then at the end, when they sing their last song, and he's like, "Oh, I remember to be a kid," and then like there's this whole third act that like didn't mesh for me, and this movie felt really padded. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes, but in all honesty, if you'd have took out the padding and songs that really, there's a lot of songs in this movie that have nothing to do with the story. Probably my favorite scene in the movie, you could have completely cut out, and it wouldn't have mattered one bit. There's a scene, an animation scene, where the kids, Mary Poppins and Jack, have to act alongside hand-drawn stuff, to which makes me go, why don't we have more hand-drawn movies? And the scene really means nothing. They tried to shoehorn it in to something about what's going on in Michael's main story, but it doesn't work because the kids have never interacted with the lead antagonist in Michael's story. Another thing that's the problem with this movie is the fact that foreshadowing is just like beating you over the head. The same scene where it's all hand-drawn and they're going to a carnival, or no, they're going to a musical. I do like the song that happens in it, "Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover," but they couldn't help but show their hands right away and who's the villain in that piece. And this movie does a lot of that. It's very heavy-handed in its messages of who's the bad guy, who's the good guy. But none of it really caught on, and it just felt like filler. And this movie has a lot of filler. Also, as far as the music goes, I'm not a big fan of it. There's not one song I can remember. I liked all the songs. The only song that I can clearly remember is the last song, because it was the last thing I saw before I left the theater. And that's a huge problem when you have a musical. Like, I remember when I left Anna and the Apocalypse, the song that I remembered the most was the second song. I remembered the second song as soon as I walked out of there, and I remembered like the fifth or sixth song and the second to last song. But there are a couple of songs I like and I would like to hear again, because they have a little bit more melancholy, and there is a lot of melancholy in this movie because of the fact what Michael's going through, what the kids are going through, and there's a nice little song there that Emily Blunt's character, Mary Poppins, sings to the kids about fading memories and losing things, and that's a really good song. But there are a lot of songs that you kind of sit there and go, that was nice, but it has nothing to do with this movie. The main villain is telegraphed really early. It does have nice cameos, especially if you've seen the original one. There's a couple of characters, and I won't say who they are, who are... I heard a big roar from the crowds, especially from the older people. I have a problem with, though, who's this movie for? You can say it's for kids because it's a musical, it's PG, it's very vibrant, it has nice colors, the cinematography is really good, but there are stretches that are boring. There's a whole chimney sweep song that it probably went on for like 8 minutes. It felt like it went on for 28 minutes. It just was really absurdly long. And yeah, there's things like that brought down this grade for me. I was feeling it at the beginning, but then you feel the padding, like I said, right around the animation sequence. And it's a shame because that animation was great. Emily Blunt was freaking really charming, and she got the role of Mary Poppins. But the rest of it just felt like, can we just we should be moving this, or we don't. This movie has a problem of focus too, because, like I said, I don't know who's supposed to be learning what. At the end of the movie, Michael Banks learns something, but he's barely in the movie. He misses large chunks of the movie, especially in the second, and he comes back in near the middle of the third act. But yeah, but most of the time we spend with the kids in Marry Poppins, and maybe if it would have been better if we would have been more focused on the kids' grief and dealing with loss, especially the loss of their mom, and the fact that they might be losing their home. But other than that, it felt loose. It really didn't feel connected. I almost hate to say so many bad things about this movie when I really did enjoy most of it. I liked Jack. I liked Emily Blunt as Mary Poppins. Very charming. The kids were pretty good too. There were some really good choreographed sequences. I will say this, if you didn't know and they didn't say anything, you would swear that Michael and Jane were actually lovers. But then there's this whole subplot with Jane and Jack, which really, I don't know if maybe it makes more sense if you've seen the original one, but it kind of seemed forced. And while I did like their chemistry because I just liked Jack so well and his character was so fun, but I don't know if it needed to be in this movie. I know I'm going back and forth a lot. I'm going back and forth with this movie a lot in my own mind. So I'm gonna give this movie a 6.5. It was good, but it never hit me on to this is really good, or wow. There are times where I was just sitting there what the hell does this have to do with the point of the movie? And yeah, I went to a screening where there were a lot of people who liked this movie, so when I left I just shut my mouth and kept walking. Yeah, so I give Mary Poppins Return an 6.5. I enjoyed it. If it comes on again, I would probably watch it. Would I watch it through to the end? Probably not. So that's my thoughts on this Disney movie. Did you see it? Let me know your thoughts on the movie. If I was wrong about the connections between the first one and the second and this one, please let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and this weekend we're going to be doing a couple of reviews. So, later.